I felt what is clearly imposter syndrome because I kept thinking they'd made a mistake.
Wow.
I didn't think I could be good enough to go to Oxford, this institution that had been so glorified, you know, in my family. And it took me a long time to come into my stride as an academic and as somebody who is intellectual and loves learning. And actually, the turning point was when I started studying African politics. And I had a Nigerian professor who I will never forget, and sadly he died recently, Ralphu Mustafa, who was an incredible scholar who taught me the history of decolonization, Pan-Africanism. And I learned about the independence movements in Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Cape Verde, Guinea, and it really helped me connect with my own heritage. I think it helped me become the person that I am, but Oxford in particular needs to do a lot better on admitting Black British students. A lot of their diversity statistics actually relate to Black students who come from other countries, which is obviously important, but it raises a question as to why Black British people are not getting into Oxford. There are so many Black British students who are excelling and they're not being recognised. And because of a class system that I'm also critical of, you know, if you get into Oxford, it unlocks other doors. And I think that if you're excluded from that, then it means that a whole generation's being excluded from other opportunities.
Right.
So I think that it's healthy to question that whole
You can definitely
structure.
tell from your book that you love that sort of research and you love that kind of uncovering things that, you know, the mainstream doesn't talk about.
I uncovered some incredible history that relates to my personal family that was on my doorstep, that was completely invisible, because I think I grew up, like you, with British and African stories, and I thought those stories were completely disconnected. I discovered that actually the history of Britain, the history of Africa is not tangential. It's not a sidebar.
Right.
You cannot understand Britain if you don't understand Africa. We couldn't have industrialised if it weren't for the slave trade and the other trade from the African continent. We couldn't have become a global power were it not for the empire, which drew fundamentally on the resources from Africa. We couldn't have won 2 world wars had it not been for the empire.
Right.
And, you know, my own story was personally affected by these huge shifts, and they were literally all around me. And I really enjoyed uncovering that history. I think it set me on a lifelong path where I'll continue to do that kind of work and research.
Yeah, it's amazing. We need it. I went to Brunel University, which is a very multicultural university. It allowed me to really be empowered by just the global nature of people and how they think. And one of the things that really helped me was meeting other Africans and how they really, as you said, they don't have this sense of otherness because they've always been part of a majority. And one of the things I noticed was that the kids that came to Brunel to study who grew up in Africa were so much more confident. And I think that comes from, you know, being raised in your home roots.
And being part of a majority.
And being part of a majority. You know, even my sisters, you know, they spent a fair amount of time in Nigeria growing up, and I see a confidence in them that at their age I didn't have. And I think it just dates back to just that rootedness.